Hi guys, this is Grace from Design Sponge, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how I turned Design Sponge from a part-time hobby into a full-time business. Design Sponge was actually the result of a conversation I had with my husband Aaron over brunch. I was about a year out of college, and I think like most people, I had dreams and hopes of what I could do one day, but had absolutely no idea how to get there. I didn't have any real experience, but despite that, I knew I really wanted to work for a design magazine. So Aaron suggested that I start the blog as a way to sort of warm up my voice and maybe one day hopefully submit it as a portfolio to a magazine. So I went home, I set up a free account at blogger.com, and I wrote my first post. I chose the name Design Sponge because I thought it sort of represented the way that I soak up information really passionately and really quickly. So like most people running a passion-based project, I had a full-time job at the same time. I was working nights, I'd work on the weekends, I would try to steal little minutes or hours anywhere that I could on my lunch break, and I was just so excited to be working that I didn't mind sort of using all of my free time to work on this little fun side project. And I think the key for the site's initial success, and maybe a part of it now still, is that I never really had a huge plan for where the site would go or what it would be. I was hoping that maybe one day I could use it to submit for a job at a magazine, but other than that, I really didn't think of anything else. I wasn't thinking about advertising or having a certain amount of readers or anything like that. I just really loved what I was doing, and I think that that was really important. I think if I had gone in with any big plans and expectations, maybe it wouldn't have been quite so fun. But for me, all I needed was to have that as an outlet to talk about the things that I cared about, and that was enough to keep me going. So there was a turning point early on where the blog started to be a little bit more than just a personal hobby blog. And for me, my first big break was actually a story in the New York Times about design blogs. And ironically, it was actually not a very good mention. Because I was working in PR at the time, the article assumed that I was getting paid to write about the things that I write about on Design Sponge. Clearly that's not true, but it ended up meaning that my first big break was actually more of a big bump. But the nice thing about that was that I went from having probably a few hundred readers a day to having about 10,000 readers a day, which admittedly is a pretty crazy leap. But at the time, there was no Domino magazine. There weren't, dozens and dozens and dozens of design blogs out there. And I think Design Sponge was in the right place at the right time with the right look. I think that there were a lot of readers that weren't finding the content that they wanted online or in magazines or on TV, and I think Design Sponge sort of represented that to them at that time. So later that year, in 2005, I was actually able to leave my day job. And it wasn't really quite as romantic as it sounds, running away from a full-time job to just be a blogger all day. I was actually able to leave because of two key factors. The first is that I started to build up a little bit of a name for myself online, and I think some editors at Condé Nast took notice. And that was why I got a call that year to join them to work on House and Garden magazine and create sort of a bigger web presence for them and sort of make it a little bit younger and hipper. And honestly, that was my dream job. That was what I'd been hoping to get, was to one day work with a magazine. And to work with a magazine that had such a history behind it was probably still one of the best times in my life. I will never forget that job. And that to me was probably one of the most exciting things that had ever happened to me. And at the same time, the advertising requests for Design Sponge were actually starting to build up. They weren't by any means paying my rent or anything like that, and I frankly had no idea what I was doing with the ad program. But it was generating a little bit of a side income. I could pay for my groceries, I could tuck a little bit of money away in my savings, just enough to think that maybe I could pull this off as long as I had another freelance job. So in 2005 to 2007, it was one giant juggling act for me. For the first 2 years, I basically balanced working on Design Sponge as the sole writer and the runner of the advertising program. I was consulting and creating weekly content for House and Garden and going in for meetings on a weekly basis. I was also writing a column for the Philadelphia Inquirer, which seems a little weird because I live in Brooklyn, but I had a blast. I took it as a great opportunity to work for a newspaper and see how that type of publishing worked. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was certainly learning a lot. And lastly, and I think this was really important to sort of how quickly the site built, was that I didn't say no to any freelancing job that came across my desk for basically 2 full years, which meant I was constantly writing something for someone else. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I decided that this was going to be my chance to learn as much as humanly possible and make up for the time and lack of experience that I had in this area. So I wrote articles about baby products, I wrote about pet design, I wrote about food design and cake stands, anything that I could get my hands on to learn and work on, I said yes to. And for me, that just meant 2 years of not sleeping and working on everything that I possibly could. And then in 2007, the bottom dropped out. And for me, that meant that House and Garden closed. I really never saw that coming, and that job had meant so much to me and had represented so many things, from experience to financial stability, that it was a pretty big blow. When the magazine closed, the first thing I did was decide that maybe I can't go full time. Maybe I should just try to find some backup jobs so I have some sort of stability and comfort. So I ended up freelancing for Domino and Craft magazines, where I wrote some monthly web and print columns. And that was amazing, and I certainly loved those magazines. But it wasn't quite the same as House and Garden, and it didn't really represent the same level of stability. So I decided that it was time to focus on the advertising program as not just a grocery money generator, but a real business, and something that might be able to actually support me more than I thought it could. And the way I did this was by bringing in some help. Now, I'll admit, I was really lucky in that Aaron actually works in digital media. He had a full-time job with a digital media agency, so he was able to come on in a freelance capacity and help run the ad program, keeping in mind that he still had a full-time job, but he was really awesome and decided to help me with that, and really helped improve the income and the professionalism at the ad program. After that, I decided it was time to really get my ducks in a row. If I was going to take myself seriously, I was going to talk to a financial advisor and an accountant. And sometimes that can be a little scary, but what happened for me was I felt really empowered. I got control of where I was. I knew exactly where I stood financially. And the nice thing about meeting with him was I actually figured out I had a little bit of disposable income. So I decided that I could either save that money and keep on freelancing and trying to juggle everything at the same time, or I could use that money to invest in myself and take a leap. And so this was when I decided to invest in a redesign of the site. The reason I did this was I decided, what could I do to make Design Sponge stand out from the pack? And for me, that meant I was going to have to create a site that looked and felt different from what it did right now and from what everyone else in the industry looked like. And this was a really scary decision for me, mainly because I had never taken that much money and spent it on anything in my life and give it to somebody else and trust them to make the site look and feel the way I wanted to. And I decided if I was going to make a go for this, I had to make this decision. And I still don't regret it to this day, because this was the moment where I decided I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to invest in my future and the future success of my business. And this was really the real turning point with Design Sponge for me, because it really helped me take the site seriously, look at it as a business, and look at it as my future. So over the next couple of years, I decided to invest in the site and change the focus from a personal blog to more of an online magazine that produced high-quality magazine-level content. And part of that change for me involved setting aside a little bit of money so I could bring on writers who were paid on a per-post basis to cover specific content areas. And this was really the beginning of building the Design Sponge editorial team. And looking back over the last 6 years, which I still cannot believe it's been 6 years, the site has gone from being a one-woman show done on my lunch break to I'm now managing a team of 20 people. And those 20 people don't all sit in an office all day with me. It's pretty much just me and Aaron. But it's really fantastic. If I look back and sit back, and I don't think I actually really do this often, but this video recording has actually given me a chance to think about it. I'm really proud of what the site has become. It really was just one person in the beginning, and now I'm overseeing a team of really talented people, and we're all sort of united in the goal of bringing the best possible content to the web that we can. And recently, Aaron and I actually made the biggest leap ever to try and support ourselves, both of us, with Design Sponge. He left his job, and now he's running the advertising program full-time. And it's pretty much still been a dream so far. It's been really exciting, and I think this is a point that a lot of people are trying to get to, where you're able to leave your job and support yourself with something that you love. For us, that meant that we've given up the sort of stable, comfortable income and health insurance and all those things that you've gotten used to in order to try to finally live the type of life that we've been wanting to live. And it's a little bit scary, but I think this is another great point in our lives and in this sort of span of Design Sponge where we're going to reinvest ourselves in the business really intensely. And for my part, I'm going to try to make the site grow editorially and expand and be the best possible version of Design Sponge that we can be. And Aaron is going to try to work with the advertising side to expand the things that we offer, to really improve the quality of service that we give our clients, and to try to really give this a go of making this business work and support our family. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and in the next video I'm going to be sharing how you can take these tips and apply them to going full-time with your own business or blog.